couple of years ago, I changed the gear oil on the rear drive unit of a 2011 Jeep Patriot. Finally getting around to doing a video for the power transfer unit, or the transfer case up on the front. This is a 2015 Jeep Patriot, and going to start by going underneath, removing the guard that's under there. It's a plastic thing, and to do that you start out with a 10 millimeter socket, and a deep one is best because it reaches in a bit there, and you're going to have to spend a bit of time undoing the 6 of those and popping a couple of fasteners on the sides, and I'll show you that in a minute. So there are 6 nuts here, and you can see the bolts. You can see they're in these little recesses up here, and the key is just to get it started and then loosen them and pull them out. So I'll do this 6 times, 3 in the front, 3 in the back, and once that's done we'll move on to the next stage. Now the last part that you need to do to get this down is you will see these little attachments right there. Plastic, it's one piece of plastic that fits into another that holds onto the guard on the side there. As soon as I let it down, it'll pop down. For some reason there aren't any on the other side. I think there's supposed to be, but I think they were left off at the factory because nobody's been under here before. Anyway, pop those and then the guard will come down. You just basically pry them. I have little pry tools that I use, plastic ones, and they'll pop out. They take a bit of work. You got to be a bit careful not to break them, but as long as you don't over torque them, everything should go well. And there, if you're wondering, is what the guard looks like that stops you from getting easy access to the oil filter and to a couple of other things under there, but otherwise keeps things protected. 6 screws and 2 attachments on the side. Now, for point of reference, I'm immediately behind the oil reservoir. There's the plug that you use to fill your engine oil, or at least drain your engine oil. And immediately behind that here is the power transfer unit, or the transfer case. Now, underneath here you might be able to see the plug. It's a recessed piece. It's a screw that's got an Allen type connection to it that you remove. I'll find the exact size in a minute or two. And then up here you will see the fill plug. Always important with these things, check the fill plug first, because if you cannot open the fill plug, you cannot refill it. If you cannot refill it, that means you have to get it towed. That costs a lot of money. So make sure you check this one first and then do the drain plug, and make sure you've obviously got something to catch the oil when it comes down. So I'll go and set that up and get it ready in a minute. Okay, so what I've done is I have loosened this with a Allen key. I've also already tested the fill plug, so that is done. So now I'm just going to pull this out here. It's going to come out a little hot, so I'm going to be careful. There is a ring here that you don't want to lose, and there it goes. You can see the ring on it. It's draining now into the pan that I've got set below. You can see it's pretty dirty because it's been there since I bought the vehicle about 4 years ago, and there it is draining, and so that will be done in a minute. As you can see, it's not a whole lot. I find it's just over a pint, or about 600 milliliters is typically about the volume that these things take. But as you can see, that was pretty dirty. You may be able to see here on the end of this, there's actually some sludge because there's a magnet there that picks up any little bits of metal, and I will clean that off with a paper towel in a bit, clean it up and get ready to put it on, and I'll just let this drip here for a bit. So a couple of things here. Here's a better view of the sludge that's built up on the bottom of that plug. Again, it's magnetic. and little bits of metal and things that accumulate over time will attach to it, which is a good thing. I'll wipe that clean. And then you'll see here I have 80W90, which is different than what I used for the 2011. Always important to check your user's manual to see what you're supposed to use. Not sure it would have made a huge difference if I used 7590, but they're saying 80W90, and so that's what I'm using. You can see I've rigged up from a bottom leg, I think they call it a lower leg pump, something that I can use to fill the tank or the reservoir for the oil, and that I will just use to fill it up. I have a 90-degree piece that you can see that I put together from my earlier video on this that will be absolutely necessary if you want to do the rear one, because that is a very tight and confined space. So a couple more little points. Turns out this is in a 10 millimeter Allen bit, and so I've got that there. That obviously just fits right underneath there. That's the bottom side, that's the top side. You can see it's all cleared up now. And here is a ring that you want to make sure you don't lose when you pull it off. It's easy to drop it into the fluid and not see it, or maybe still have it stuck there. So make sure that's there. That just goes on like that, and then it's ready to go back in once you've cleaned up the whole the drain hole from any oil that's hanging around there, because you want to make sure that if there is any around, it's stuff that's leaking and not stuff that you were wondering if you left there earlier. So make sure you clean up around the drain hole before you put the plug back in. And so I'm just showing you this. You can see how I've cleaned up around the drain plug hole there, and so you see a bit of oil around, but I've cleaned it up, and so if anything comes out later, we'll know that there's a very high probability it's because of a leak that we want to tighten rather than anything else. So just because of the angle, I'll do this off camera, but I now have the plug back in, and I've made sure that the ring is in there, and the standard is 32 foot-pounds of torque, which is not a whole lot. It's not like you're cranking on it if you don't have a torque wrench, but or torque gauge, but it is tight enough to make sure that things do not spill. So I'm hoping that you can see what I've rigged up here. It's a little complicated being one person doing camera work and doing the work itself. So I will see if I can make it work so that you can see the oil coming out. It should take about 600 milliliters or something like that to fill it, and unlike a lot of things, you actually want it to almost overfill. That's the level it should be at. It says just very slightly underneath there, but I'm going to be waiting for oil to come out of the fill hole. So you can see it's just starting to drip out, so I'm going to let that continue dripping till it gets to the right level, but that's how you know it's full. And it's not a bad idea if you're not sure if it's just spilling to give it a couple of more shots and then see if that causes it to spill out any more quickly, and then you know that it's pretty much up to the right level. And then you should also check the difference in volume in the container before you started and the end. I start with a new one, so as long as I'm somewhere between half and 3/4 full empty by the time I'm done, then I should be good. So don't know what you're able to see here, but I've set this to 32 foot-pounds, and that's what I'll use to set both the fill plug and the drain plug. So now you can see I've replaced the plug up here and the plug down here, and I've given it a little bit of a test by putting it in gear and holding the brakes on and running it, and I can see that nothing's leaking here, and so we're in good shape. And so that whole job, which took maybe half an hour or something like that, took a little bit longer than it would have because I was doing video, that has ended up saving me a couple $100. Oh, there you go. That is how to change the power transfer unit or power transfer case oil on a Jeep Patriot, 2015 in this case.